Hello, Phil Croshaw here from Passions, and in this episode, it's only fitting on this snowy day that we welcome the one and only Robin Cousins to the show. Enjoy. Hello and a very warm welcome to Passions. And today I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by ice skating legend, no less, Robin Cousins. So Robin, a very warm welcome to Passions. Thanks ever so much for joining me today. Just for those one or two people that might not know who you are, tell us who you are and your passion.
My name is Robin Cousins, born in Bristol in 1957. Olympic figure skating champion 40 years ago this year in 1980 in Lake Placid for men's figure skating. Got an MBE that year, and then 40 years ago this week, Sports Personality of the Year. And since then, odd jobs fan, been around, done some things. The passion is performing. And why I say that is because long before there was skating, there was a gentleman by the name of Gene Kelly. And he's the reason that I got into any type of performing, because I wanted to be a dancer, because I wanted to be Gene Kelly when I was a kid. So that's how it all started. Sunday afternoons in front of the telly watching the old MGM musicals and saying to my mother, I want to do what he's doing. And then the odd story was that my mother then had to figure out how does she tell her football, cricket, rugby husband that their son wanted to dance. And I was the youngest of three. My brothers both at that point, a few years older, were already starting the football cricket thing. And my father had been an apprentice at Millwall Football Club before the war. He was an apprentice goalie. And his reaction to my mother's question was, well, if it's good enough for Millwall, it's good enough for my son. And the reason he could say that is because Millwall Football Club were one of the first clubs at that time to employ a ballet coach, instructor, dancer, however they wanted to call it, in order to help the players stretch and be fit and not get injured. So I got to dance because of Millwall Football Club.
That's fascinating. Of all the clubs as well, in terms of their reputation, you wouldn't have thought that, would you, in a million years?
No. And of course, I don't remember that at all. But my mother said no. It was very simple. How do I say he wants to dance? Nothing against dancing per se, but and that kind of kicked everything off. And what I would say also in that is that my brothers continued rugby, cricket, football. That was their passion throughout. My one middle brother Nick was an international rugby referee, but I enjoyed team sports. I went along and supported them. But for me, it was always one-on-one. It was me running, me doing cartwheels, me jumping as high as I can, me throwing myself off a wall to see how far I could go. So it was always this. I've always been a bit of a speed demon. Still am, don't tell anybody. And that was the thing, though. But the passion was to perform. I wanted to be Gene Kelly, dancing with situations. And I suppose what I took, and it stayed with me through my whole career, looking at him, and certainly in retrospect now, every move he made or every dance he did looked incredibly spontaneous. Huge Fred Astaire fan, love all of that, but you know that there's hours and hours of rehearsal that went into getting that result. Whereas with a Gene Kelly performance, there's just a joy that gives it a feel of spontaneity. And that's what I've taken through my whole career. And I think my first skating coach, Pam Davis, said to me, she said, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And that has always stayed with me. And I won an Olympic gold medal, not because of what I did, but how I did it. And I think a lot of people in any walk of life can have aspirations and have idols and have ideas about moving forward, and there are ways of copying and being reverential and stealing and saying, well, if that's the way it's done, that's the best way. But then always find the way to make it yours and make it your own and use. And someone back in, I think it was BBC Bristol, said to me, what's it like when people are saying you're going to be the next John Curry? And I said, well, I don't know where this came from, and it's out there on video, but I said, I don't want to be the second John Curry. I want to be the first Robin Cousins. And that's the thing. I like the responsibility also of being on my own and falling on my sword. So, you make a mistake, it's your fault. You get it right, you get the credit. And probably have lived most, if not all of my life by that. It's lovely to have support from other people. You don't rely on other people. But the reality is there's no excuse. You either do or you don't.
Yeah,
there could be reasons why. Many reasons why.
I love that. I can totally get that. So you obviously wanted to be a dad. Do you think being a performer was always in you and Gene Kelly brought it out, or was it only because of Gene Kelly that you became passionate about it? If you see what I mean?
No. I think that performer thing was probably always there. Yeah, there are stories of a little boy running around a campfire in a nativity play, and then the teacher having to come and grab him by the arm and pull him off because he hadn't followed everybody else. He'd seen an empty stage and thought, ta-da! And again, it's you find your way to the front, find your spotlight, as it is now, what people say. But it's that, for me, that was getting out the energy, using that energy and having that. And you can find that in somebody in the back line of a rugby match or on the middle of an ensemble on stage. There's going to be that person who catches your eye and grabs your attention, not because they're the best dancer, not because, for me, mostly because of how much fun or the joy that they have in doing what they love. You cannot fake it. And I think that's the other thing, is that you can be brilliant at something, you can find your way, and then some people find their way behind the scenes, and without those people, the people in front couldn't do their job. All those people on stage who then you say, well, why do we keep seeing that person? Because everybody likes to watch them, because they're finding the joy in their performances, and that doesn't necessarily make them the best at that job. It just makes them very good at delivering honesty.
Brilliant. So what in effect was being the very best you can be a massive driver?
Yes. And that's not about winning either. That's, again, just about having that opportunity to perform. You're being given an opportunity that other people will never have. And those things keep coming through your life. So I was dancing, and at the same time, my brothers and I were singing in the church choir. I sang in school choirs, and I've sung all my life. So my immediate reaction was, I can do what he's doing. I love to dance like that. He can sing a bit. It's all good. So all of that would come together. And then we were on holiday in Bournemouth. My brothers were playing clock golf with my dad. And my mother and I think I was 5, were walking along Bournemouth Prom. And I saw the advertisements in the window, these feathers and glitter and big flashy lights, like a Hollywood poster. And it was the advertisement for the Bournemouth Ice Volleys. And the doors were open, and we went in and stood there in the cold, looked around, and I saw these people whizzing around on the ice. And back in the day, when the Westover ice rink was open to the public during the day in the summer, and then at night seats would come in, they would put the lights, and they would have shows, summer shows. But the public session was on, so I said, I want to have a go. Can I have a go? So next thing I know, I'm on the ice, and my mother was slightly frantic because she probably spent more money for me to go on the ice than the ice cream that I was probably promised. And this man, again, supposedly this gentleman came up to my mother and said, "Where's your son from? Where does he skate?" And she said, "Well, no, he's never been on the ice before." And the man said, "Don't be ridiculous." I can tell he's been on the ice before. She said, no, we're from Bristol. We don't have an ice rink. So then he made a beeline for me and told me in front of my mother that the ice rink in Bristol was going to be built the following year. So I remember whizzing around. I remember that sort of the freedom. I call it my white canvas. It's the freedom that you have. And the one thing I probably was not good at, and I know I wasn't good at, I was going through the ballet and doing the classes and doing everything you need to do, but the rigidity of it, and me, impatient me, waiting for the other people to get as good or catch up so that we could learn the next bit. And it was just one of those moments where it was the freedom of flying around. So my dad worked in the council houses. He was in the motor tax division in Bristol, and at the bottom of Park Street in Bristol, which is just around the corner from Frogmore Street, where the ice rink was going to be built. So my brothers and I, once a month or every other month, would go with Dad. We would meet him, and he would take us to get our haircut. And the only reason, apparently, again, the only reason I would do it is if he drove back past where they were building the ice rink. So the ice rink was open and up and running. And then I asked for a skating lesson for Christmas. So went to the ice rink with my mother, and we stood in the lobby area, and they had the list up of the skating coaches and the people that knew this person with that costume, this person that cost for your learn to skate class. And my mother said, well, which one will we can afford that one. And I said, no, I want her. I said, the lady over there that's smiling at me. I'm going to just put up a quick picture here.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Her name was Pamela Davis. Bristol was her first teaching job. She was 18 years old. She was a contemporary of John Curry. She trained in Birmingham. But she was an ice dancer, not a single skater. So she jumped and span to a certain level, junior level, but then she competed nationally as an ice dancer and at the World Pro Championships, I think a couple of years with her then coach. And she had, by her own admission later, seen this little boy on the ice and just thought he was something special. And Pam took me in my learn to skate class and took me right the way through to my first world championship. And wow. She learned on the job, but I suppose what I got and what all of her students got was that she didn't have or wasn't fitting into a mold. Again, first job, this is how I was taught, this is how I am. And again, skating is a sport that you learn your version of. There is a theory and there are set rules, but how you interpret them and how you do them, it's up to you. So that, again, from the dance world, to have that bit of freedom is that Pam really instilled individuality in her students. And she was the first person and the only person I knew that made me feel like I was the only student she had and the others didn't really matter. And I'm sure the others were made to feel exactly the same. And it was very much a case of, you will look this, you will feel great, you will always be given that opportunity to shine. She took us to the Sunday markets where we picked out fabrics for shirts or outfits. We sat and we went to the Radio Bristol or the old HMV or wherever we could in the old days where you could actually go and listen to records in the shop. And we were involved in every aspect of our performance, even to the point, and I know it happened more than once with me, where I would pick something and we would go and work on it. And then she goes, doesn't really work, does it? And then you go, no. And she goes, okay. But it was a learning program. Rather than just say, no, you're not skating to that yet. You have to put that by. It was, that's lovely. Okay, let's go play. Okay, no, it's not going to work. But it doesn't mean it's wrong. Let's just keep it till you're ready. My very first skating competition music was the theme from Thunderbirds. Da, 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 da. Great, that was it. I loved it. Yeah, Thunderbirds, my first piece of music. And then again, it was the joy of being able to get on the ice. It didn't always work, never always worked. And you know, there was a time when my dad had got a pair of boxer shorts, regular cotton boxer shorts, and when we were down at the market, picked up some of that then quite dense Sorbo foam rubber and stitched to pieces into the hips and I wore those under my skating trousers to try and alleviate, because I was very tall, very skinny, and clumsy in as much as I didn't go slowly and go, I just went. I only knew one speed, and that was full out. So of course you kind of, it helps sometimes to know how it's going to be when you land, as opposed to just wait and see what happens. But at that point, the harnesses to help you jump and spin weren't available. You did it. You learned by repetition.
I'm smiling at the moment, actually, because it reminds me, because I'm very similar to that. You know, it's that. And as a slight aside, I remember doing some dry slope skiing once for the first time. And, you know, nursery slope, or I'll go down there twice, and then went on the big slope, coming down at 40 miles an hour, and realized I hadn't learned to stop yet. And
I know that person, because I was that person. That's on. I mean, I could do a real clang name drop on that one, but yeah, that's exactly what I ended up getting asked mid-80s. I mean, that's again the Olympics opens doors to these opportunities to work on a film called Fire and Ice, which was a Willy Bogner, the skier. His clothing is synonymous with après-ski everywhere. And we were at the top of the mountain, and then I was choreographing for some ski ballet with Susie Chapstick, as she was then, John Eaves, and again I was working with them to be able to do ski ballet and turn around without using the poles. And we were at the top, and the only way to come down at the end of the day, the very first day, was to ski, and I had never skied in my life before. So they stuck me on a pair of short ballet skis, which are not much longer than my blades, and here, just come slowly. And that was my introduction in Vail, Colorado, coming down, and who knows what kind of run it was. It didn't really matter. So that was the thing. Yeah, the harder it is, the more challenging. So why not just start with that? And that was kind of my approach to many things, and it still is in some ways, because all people can do is say no. If you don't ask the question, you won't know. All they can do is say no. You have the opportunity to do, as I have had, many theatre auditions, whatever. All they can do is say no. You can be panicked about it, or you can be excited because you have an opportunity other people will never get, even though they've trained all their lives in that industry. Yes, the Olympic medal can open doors, but then it's your job to make sure people then don't slam them in your face again. Or, yeah, I mean, jumping forward slightly, I did an interview with somebody about a performance in a show I was going into in London, going into Chicago, and they said, well, Chicago is known for stunt casting. I said, I don't care. I don't care what people think when they come in to see me. I do care about what they think when they leave. So it was, all you can do, no matter what the job is go out onto the stage, go onto the ice, stand on those starting blocks, and never find yourself going, oh, what if only I. All you can do is be as prepared as possible, and then the result really does not matter, because you have prepared yourself to be the best you can be at that given time, as an interviewer, as a performer, as an artist, no matter what it is. And some days it works, and some days it doesn't. And
totally.
We've all been there. You just hope it ain't that day in front of those judges at the Olympics. Having said that, it wasn't the perfect performance for me, and my goal after that was to head to the World Championships and give the perfect performance. I didn't win the World Championships, but I gave the perfect performance, and I did exactly what I set out to do. So that Olympic medal ain't going anywhere, but it will not stop me from thinking there's another challenge out there, or that there's another opportunity that it might help me get, but it won't help me keep. Only you can do that as who you are. And it's lovely. It's lovely to have those opportunities. So then going right back, again, with Pam, it got to that point where, yes, there are medals and there are trophies and there are things, but you just don't tell people there was only 2 people in the event. You learn very quickly when you're one of, well, there were 4 boys and maybe 50 girls in that rink, and the southern region where I competed around sort of Bristol, Southampton, Bournemouth, Streatham, Richmond, and Brighton. That was our competition circuit, and then national championships. First national championship was 1969 in Billingham, Teesside, for the British Novice Championships. The junior national championships that I won was in the spring of 1972, again in Birmingham. And then winter of 72, I competed in my first senior championships, and I was third. And that's where I met John Curry for the first time, who was standing on top of the podium. And it was the next sort of 4 or 5 years that I got to find out as much as anybody did about who John was and what he was like. I certainly could see what he was like in terms of training and what his attitude was on the ice and what he wanted. Years later, we talked about it quite in great depth at the Sky Rink in New York, where we both ended up training. But at that time, you learn by watching. And then in 76, I was a teammate, and we were again on the same training ice. And I got to see him conduct himself. I got to watch him interact with the coaches. I got to watch him, and I learned pretty much everything that I took with me 4 years later into Lake Placid, or into that whole season. I had an inkling, from having experienced in the Olympics in Innsbruck, but also been peripheral to the whirlwind that happens around somebody who is expected to medal. And John helped me in that preparation. British Skating Association sent Pam and myself from Bristol to London once a week for some additional lessons, as much for Pam to learn how to be coaching me as for me as a 13, 14-year-old. And then it was that moment when you have that option of, I'm on a podium at a European Championship, and I'm traveling, and what am I going to do? How do I make this work? I had left school aged 15. My birthday is in August, so I think it was the final year where 15-year-olds who were going to turn 16 in the summer holiday were allowed to leave. You didn't have to do that extra year. And I left with the blessing of the headmaster and my family, and I conducted my life then in the skating world and trying to figure out what I wanted. In 16, 17, I was then moved to London. I was a £9 a week bedsit in not far from 15-minute walk from the Queensway Ice Rink. I was then the alarm was going off around 4:30, 5. Myself and pretty much, I would say, 75% of the British skating team in singles and ice dance at that time were training at Queensway with Gladys Hogg, who was a premier coach in the world of figure skating. And we would skate early mornings. We would then, depending on whether it was school holidays, breaks, how busy the public session was, we could get a bit extra work. There was a lunchtime, 1 hour lunchtime session, and then I would trot down the road to Whiteley's department store, which sadly has just been demolished, except for the facade. And I would stock shelves and do whatever I needed to do. Most of the other older skaters were either working at William Hill or in the pub to raise their funds for skating, to help fund it. And my money was to get me the train ticket back to Bristol for the weekends, and then come back on Monday morning and it would start again. And that was my life for 2 years.
Robin, you mentioned,
when you find out.
You mentioned earlier about when you went on the ice and the guy said, "Where's this lad from?" Which obviously shows an element of, I guess, natural talent in a sense. How much of the success, your success, maybe other people's success, is about natural talent versus the dedication to turn that natural talent into something amazing?
Yeah, I know it because I've lived it, and I can't say I'm still. I was that person that could take a week off and get back on the ice. It was like nothing. It was fine.
Yeah.
My goal with everybody now is that you have to, and again, I'll go back to Pam with this, because she was between Pam Davis. I had three skating coaches in my entire career. Pam Davis, who started me off, Gladys Hogg, who got me onto the international scene along with Pam, and then Carlo Fassi, who had three Olympic champions, 4 world champions, various other people, including John Curry and Dorothy Hamill in '76, and myself in 1980. And he was the one who said, if they hadn't done their job, I couldn't do mine in terms of being coaches. He was the one that said there's no such thing as a magic wand. We just have to find that rough diamond and collectively we polish it together. And Pam was the one who had said to me, never get off the ice angry, because when you get back on the ice the next time, that's what you take out. And my thing is never forget why you put your skates on. So those days where it's crappy and horrible, those days where things don't work, they haven't done their job with you and for you, but that doesn't mean to say you still don't love what you do. So it's that fine line, and I will always say to somebody, never forget why you do it, or find out why you want to do it in the first place, because that will dictate whether you're going to be any good at it. And I say that because if you do talks with schools and kids, they want to be Beckham, they want it to be, back in the day, Steffi Graf, they want to be whoever they want to be. It's all about the trappings of being successful. It isn't about the sport. And you go, well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, it's pissing with rain, you're still going to go and kick the ball around. And they look at you like, what are you talking about? So what do you think Beckham did? His mother would have to grab him by the scruff of the neck and pull him off because he was in his world with the football. It doesn't matter where it was, what time of the day it is, what the weather's like. And that's the same for me. And the number of kids who would look at you and go, well, you would have done all of that even if you hadn't won. And I said, I was doing all of that before I won. And if I hadn't had that opportunity, I would still be doing that. That is what I do. That being, for me, ice skating, or now on stage performances, it's the performing aspect and the challenge every time you do it. So I always say, my parents say to me, my kid's really, really talented. And I said, well, that's great. Bring them back when they want to use it. Because talent means you do it because you can, not because you know how. And the difficulty from, again, going back to what I said earlier about my sport being, you learn by repetition. And did you feel that on that jump? Okay, can you make that happen again? It's in muscle memory and you feel it in your body. So when there are kids who come up to say, oh, I've lost my axle, I've lost my double sota. And I would say, well, where did it go? Shopping? You haven't lost it. You just didn't know how to do it. Your body could do it, but your brain couldn't. So in teaching, it's making, having kids teach you. Once you've taught them and their body is capable of doing it, they're doing, okay, now teach me what you're doing. Okay, did you realize what you just asked me to do and what you physically do are two different things? No. Okay, so why don't you go away for 10 minutes, figure that out. So it's making them understand. And there are those who are phenomenal performers and incredible athletes and incredible people in the world who have learned their craft meticulously because they are very self-aware that they don't have that natural gift, but that does not make them any less important or any sometimes better, because there's a consistency with that. And I suppose, if anything, for me, I had to be in the right place in the music in order for that jump to happen, because it wasn't on the crash, it wasn't going to work. There was that inconsistency, which also makes you more exciting, possibly. And there was that sense of spontaneity, even though it's exactly what you've been doing every day. But just because I did it perfectly yesterday does not mean the exact same performance will be perfect tomorrow, or that it will be the same performance. Anybody who works in live entertainment will tell you the script will be identical, but the delivery will probably not, because there has to be an element of reality which comes with being in the moment. So natural ability and natural talent is phenomenal. But if you don't have the aptitude to use it, it ain't taking you anywhere.
Brilliant. And as shows like Dancing on Ice, for example, and I guess Strictly, in terms of normal standard dancing, if you like, have they helped? Because which I know obviously you're involved in Dancing on Ice. Have those shows resulted in a significant increase in interest in ice skating? So they have promoted it positively. Yeah?
They promote it brilliantly, and a little bit of a false sense of security, because of course the training hours that go beforehand, and it's not quite as simple as it's made out to be. and how it's edited and presented. But however, the numbers of people who then, the droves going to the winter ice rinks when they would pop up around cities, and again, skating, ballroom to a certain extent, more with figure skating, is that mum, dad, grandma, granddad, grandchildren, and everybody in between can all be on that winter ice rink at the same time doing the same thing. Oh God, I remember, excuse me, Steve Backley in Dancing on Ice being thrilled at the fact that he had actually discovered something that he could do with his two daughters outside of the show. And again, when he said, with the group they're at that age, there's not a lot Dad can do with them as girlies. I can take them skating. We can skate. So it's had a huge impact. I would say, from the celebrity point of view, certainly from the days that I was involved in and knowing how they are now, I think there's maybe only a handful that still don't have their skates and couldn't be ready to go, wouldn't jump on the ice given the opportunity. Some take to it better than others, obviously, but it is that opportunity. It's just unfortunate, our ice rinks are not that prevalent around the country. Those that are classed as leisure facilities because they might be inside a leisure centre, even though it's a sport. So British Ice Skating, who had a horrendous time over the last year trying to get venues open and not open, and how can they be COVID secure and safe? And it's happening, and they're up and running. But sport generally and performances, but the arts, and my other passion, it's breaking my heart to see how things are at the moment across the board for people. But you continue to do what you can, and needs must, and Zoom meetings and kids doing off ice jumps and learning how to do things. You don't fall over, and it's not quite as slippery when you do it on the ground. So there are great things to be able to be done in terms of muscle memory and visualization, which are all sort of new things that certainly weren't around in my day. But it's the idea that skating became accessible to families and to kids, and there are a lot of kids competing nationally and maybe even internationally now that started because of something like Dancing on Ice or Strictly.
Yeah, straight away when you were saying about that, about something to do with the family, something to do with the kids, I think one of the things these days is anything to get them off their iPads.
Well, yeah, we didn't have those, but you see that again in my day, I only ever saw my competitors when I showed up at the practice. We had local competitions here, there were maybe 3 or 4 internationals a year that were sometimes televised if they were a big, sort of a Grand Prix level. Nowadays, I can log on. In fact, I'll be checking in this week. The Japanese National Skating Championships are happening, and the Russian National Championships, both being covered online. So if you, as an athlete or a skater or a coach or whatever it's going to be, want to know what your kids are up against, it's all available on YouTube. Every event, whether it's a novice event in Korea, a primary championship in Russia, or an inclusive event here in the UK, it's all available. So you can see and you can learn as much by going down the Google rabbit hole and into the YouTube rabbit hole. It's phenomenal what you can find of performance and arts and entertainment, which don't necessarily impact you directly, but I would tell anybody who's interested in skating, and if you are a competitor, you are a performer. So look at all the skating performances, and I've give them names. I've never heard of that person. Google them, you'll find out what somebody like American Janet Lind, who is probably one of the greatest skaters to never win an Olympics. But the sheer joy on the face every single time she is on the ice is something you would want every student to have. It's that feeling. This is what I want you to have, that joy. You want the judges and the audience to feel comfortable with you. I don't want people on the edge of the seat thinking, well, they won't they? You train for that. Which also brings me to one other statement, and this is my dad, bless him, who said this to a journalist when the old argument would come up is, skating is not a sport. It's a thing. And my father very succinctly said, excuse me, but he said, the sport is in the training, the art is in the execution. And that's exactly, it is a performance sport. It is an art, and it needs to be an art form. But that doesn't say that the training is any less. And I think no matter who you are, I mean, you watch, taking Beckham again as an example, how beautifully he moves on the field when he's in his zone. That's choreography. That's natural instinct of movement. That's not just, oh, he's just running to get down the end to kick that ball. There's an art to every single movement that an archer has in preparation to let that bow go. The training and what you don't see is the hours that they did to work and to manipulate to be able to be in a position to just do something that we all go, wow, have no interest in it, but man, I get it. I can see that they're really good at it. And I think that's the other thing about our sport, is that you don't have to know anything about it to enjoy it or to appreciate it.
Do you think people understand what goes into it? Because I think there's an element of it, especially in this day and age, of what I would call instant gratification. Everything's instant, especially for the kids,
Yes.
as you're referring to earlier.
Absolutely. Oh no, yeah.
Do people
they
have
don't
any
want to work that hard?
Yeah.
Don't want to work that hard. And they don't. It's not that they don't necessarily want to work that hard, but a lot of them don't want to work that hard unless they know what they're going to get at the end. And that's therein lies the rub, because what you get out of it at the end of the day is exactly the same the next day or tomorrow or next week or next year. It's that joy of having been able to do something other people don't have the option to do, that you can do at just a certain level, and again have that realistic expectation of your ability. So you should always be able to say, pat yourself on the back. It should not be about beating anybody else. My analogy with that is, there are competitions that I won that I thought I probably should have been third or fourth. There are competitions where I was fifth that I thought I could have been on the podium. And then you have that, he beat me last time, I'm going to beat him next time. Great. So you go to the competition and you beat him. Somebody else comes along and beats both of you. So you haven't actually achieved anything. The idea is, you fell 3 times last time, well, how about you just try and fall once or not at all? What's your game? This is my coaching thing now. Is what's your game plan for that competition? What do you want to achieve out of it? What's that thing that you can go, regardless of the level of performance and where you finish, that you can go, I've ticked that, I didn't cheat the job this time. I've landed it, it's always been a bit cheated. This time it was fine. There's your takeaway. Find something in a realistic way that is your takeaway from the event. And then, as I did the Olympics, I've done my job. I was the first of the final 8 to skate, and it was going to be at least an hour before the thing was over. So I did the warm-up, I did my performance, I went into the dressing room, I took my skates off, and I left that building, and I went into the adjacent building and watched a training session happening. I think it was the American women. There was a women's training session happening. And I, to this day, couldn't tell you what the other 7 people did in that competition. I only know, and I was only responsible for what I did. I couldn't make them skate better or worse. I couldn't influence the judges. I could do nothing about it. And I suppose the upshot of that was that I found out that I was an Olympic champion from my brother, who had somehow found his way up next to the great Alan Weeks in the BBC commentary box, and was seeing the all flashing up. And then someone said to my parents, who were saying, Coach, where's Robin? They're looking for him, they being the organisers. And someone said, oh, I saw him, he's in the other rink. And my brother came running through and grabbed me and said, come on, you've got to come back, come on. And we're running back and coming back through the vomitory between the 2 venues. And then he suddenly occurred to him that I didn't know it was over or that I had won. So I found out that I was the Olympic champion from my brother, Nick.
And do you still get nervous? I mean, this whole thing about nervous, some people say going on stage performance, the throwing up right the way through.
It's necessary.
Yes. Is it all part and parcel of it, Robin?
Absolutely. I was with the young kids now. I said, what, you've got butterflies in your tummy? Yeah. Okay. Well, you have two choices. You either leave them there where they're just going to keep going, or you let them out and you let them do what they're supposed to, fly, and you let them fly with you. So use them to let you fly on the ice and have a lovely time. The day that you don't get those butterflies is the day you have to engage the brain even more, because the butterflies are that natural adrenaline instinct that allows the body to do what it loves to do. So we have all been there in those days where you suddenly find yourself on the ice in that third show on a Saturday of a 9-show week going, did I do the laundry? Did I turn the oven off? Did I as you're doing your performance? Because you're just thinking, oh, but the best performances will always have that slight bit of tension, and you don't want to not have that when you're standing on the side of the stage, when they're about to call your name. In our business, they would call your name, representing Great Britain, ladies and gentlemen, and you would go out and you stand there. And then that was that 4 hours and 15 minutes between the silence of the applause finishing and the music starting, which is probably maybe 8 seconds at most. But that's that moment where you have two thoughts. The one is, could this just end right now, please? And the other is, the music. And off you go. It's never not going to be there, no matter where you are. You're standing backstage, and the song before your entrance, for me doing Chicago, ready to come up on stage as Billy Flynn, that moment, and I walked backstage, I was finding the dressing room, come backstage, and just coming around the corner, and the real sound coming from the stage and from that audience to you as you're about to make the orchestra playing their bit, and you go, and then you run up. That's it. That's that moment you live for as a performer and as an athlete. You need it. As I say, once you've learned your craft, you can make it happen, but it's not the same as allowing it to happen.
Brilliant. Okay, well, finally, Robin, I'll let you go, because I could go on forever with this conversation. Which good news is I'm not going to. Finally, then, obviously, there's lots of people, and there'll be a lot of people who watch this who have got ambitions and, as you said earlier, aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
What sort of tips or what sort of guidance or advice might you give? And I know there's a lot, probably,
right.
To say something to actually get to their peak capabilities.
For me, it's very simple. Do you feel it in your gut? And the answer for most people is going to be yes. Then you write down all the reasons that you love it and all of the reasons you hate it, or what you think is going to make it difficult. And you realize that the reason you hate it, you don't hate them. Those are the challenges that the first column needs. So in order to attain what you want in that first column, you need to address a couple of these in this column. And eventually what they do is they actually move across, and they end up supporting the things that you think are great, because those things can't just happen. So the most important thing is, whatever it is you choose to do, all or nothing, ownership, responsibility, and never forget why you started it in the first place. There is no end goal. The end goal wasn't an Olympics. The end goal for me was to be in front of an audience. And here we are 40 years after the Olympics, and I'm still in front of them occasionally. Not as much as we were, but it doesn't matter. What's the next goal? What's that next audience? Because the minute a horrible ladder analogy, the minute you have a top, there's nowhere else to go. So the ladder, it has to be infinite. There has to be another challenge. There has to be another way you can paint the same pictures with different colors. You can find another way to write the same sentence. You will find another way to interview with the same questions, but by turning it on its head and answer, it'll be different. It all still comes back to the reason you're sitting behind that microphone asking those questions, why I'm interested in sitting here answering them. What's in your gut? And that's the bottom line.
Well, I would say from my point of view, I've realized over the years that, in my words, I'm naturally curious about people. And in my wife's words, I'm a nosy sod. So, I mean, either
and
way.
You couldn't do one without the other. There's the answer. That you've just exactly explained. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just love people's stories. I love, I just really enjoy listening to your story and how you got there and picking up some of the insights
Yes.
and the experiences. And that's just what I love about it. And I don't, there's all this debate about passions and where they come from and everything. And sometimes it's quite difficult to actually figure it out. I'm fascinated by it. Maybe I should have been a journalist in another life. I don't know, but that's just in me.
Right. I have one more thing that I would like to say, because I think one of the questions people always ask me, what was it like standing on that podium? And for me, it's oh yes, I'm gonna I can illustrate this.
No worries.
Oh, most people, of course, remember that. It's the picture of people looking at me.
Yes.
My greatest memory is this picture that someone took over my shoulder. So I'll try and get rid of the... And the reason that is because whilst everybody is looking at me and I've got the medal around my neck and the flag is going up, I am looking into the vomitory where my parents and my brother are standing, where my coaches are standing, where the British team leader is standing. And they were just 6 members of a much greater team that without whom I would not have been standing where I was standing. So lovely to have the medal around my neck. Amazing to be on that podium. But my memory will always be that photograph of the vision that I had that is indelibly marked in my brain and will always be. Because again, without... in the grander scheme of things, and that goes back then, my first junior event, without the people standing on the side, I wouldn't have been doing. You must always be grateful for the people that you had around you and supported you throughout your career. And then on the back of that, surround yourself with the people who tell you what you need to hear. Don't surround yourself with people who just tell you what they think you want to hear.
Fantastic. What a lovely way to end. Robin, really appreciate your time. Stay safe in these weird times. Of people may not realize we're recording this in December, just before what used to be Christmas.
Yeah, well, you see, people keep saying Christmas isn't cancelled. The 24th is going to happen. The 25th is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
We may not be able to be with our loved ones, but hopefully everybody will be able to at least talk to them and see them. And fortunately, they're alive to have those conversations and to be loved and to, enjoy those moments. So happy Christmas to everybody, and let's all get through this, and we'll see everybody on the other side in a much healthier, happier 2021.
Fabulous. Thanks very much, Robin.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Again, may meet you one day back in the real world at some point.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Lovely. Look forward to it. All right.
Take care. Bye bye now. Bye bye.